The reunion. Ethan hadn't seen Marcus in almost 7 years. Life had taken them in different directions, different cities, different careers, different versions of themselves. But when Marcus called him out of the blue, his voice warm and familiar, Ethan felt like he was 20 again. "Come stay with us for a few weeks," Marcus had said. "You need a break. Ava would love to finally meet you properly. I've told her everything about you." Ethan smiled at that. Everything. They had grown up together, shared secrets, broken hearts, dreamed big dreams. Marcus had always been the confident one, the guy who never doubted himself. Ethan had always been quieter, observant, the one who felt deeply but rarely said much. He didn't know how meeting Marcus's wife would change everything. The house was beautiful, minimalist, modern. Sunlight flooded the living room through wide glass windows. And then Ava walked in. She wasn't what Ethan expected. She was calm, elegant, and impossibly warm. Her smile was gentle, but there was something in her eyes, something tired, thoughtful, like she carried quiet stories she'd never told out loud. "You must be Ethan," she said, offering her hand. Her voice was soft, but it stayed with him. "That's me," he replied, suddenly aware of his heartbeat. Marcus wrapped an arm around her waist. "This is the guy who saved me from failing physics and getting arrested in college." Ava laughed, and the sound was light, but her eyes lingered on Ethan a second longer than necessary. That was the first moment he felt it. Not attraction, not love. Something quieter, something dangerous. That night, they sat on the balcony. Marcus had gone to bed early. Work had drained him. Ava stayed behind with Ethan, sipping wine, the city glowing below them. "So," she said, leaning on the railing, "Marcus talks about you like you're a legend." Ethan smiled. "He exaggerates." She tilted her head. "He always does that with people he loves." The word loves sat between them. Ava stared at the city lights. "He's a good man, just always busy, always somewhere else." He didn't know what to say. "You're lucky," she added quietly. "You seem grounded, like you actually listen when people talk." He looked at her. "That matters." She smiled again, this time a little sad. That night, Ethan lay in bed staring at the ceiling, replaying her voice. He told himself it was nothing, but deep down he felt something shifting, something he knew he shouldn't feel. And in another room, Ava stared at her own ceiling, wondering why talking to her husband's best friend felt more intimate than talking to her husband. The unspoken connection. The days blended together quietly. Ethan worked remotely from Marcus's home office, while Marcus spent most of his time at the company headquarters. Ava worked part-time as a freelance designer, so she was home more often than her husband. At first, their conversations were casual, safe, normal. But something about talking to Ava felt effortless. She didn't fill silence with noise. She didn't try to impress. She listened, really listened. One afternoon, Ethan found her in the kitchen, barefoot, sunlight pooling across the floor like liquid gold. She was sketching in a notebook, her brow slightly furrowed. "You draw?" he asked. She looked up, surprised. "Sometimes it helps me think." "Think about what?" She hesitated, then smiled lightly. "Everything." He poured coffee and sat across from her. She turned the notebook so he could see. The sketches were delicate. Rooms, people, half-finished faces. "You're good," he said. She shrugged. "Marcus says it's just a hobby." Ethan looked at her. "Does it feel like just a hobby to you?" Her pencil paused midair. "No," she admitted quietly. "It feels like the only thing that's mine." Later that evening, they found themselves on the couch, a movie playing in the background neither of them was really watching. Marcus was late again. Ava sat with her knees pulled to her chest, a blanket around her shoulders. The room was dim except for the TV glow and a lamp near the window. "So, can I ask you something personal?" she said. Ethan nodded. "Sure." "Do you think people settle in life?" He thought for a moment. "Sometimes, but not always intentionally." She stared at the screen, but her mind wasn't there. "I used to think love would be louder, more present, like someone choosing you every day, not just once. Ethan felt the weight of her words. "Do you feel chosen?" he asked softly. She didn't answer immediately. Then she shook her head. "I feel managed, scheduled, like a task in his calendar." The silence between them felt heavy, but not uncomfortable, more like the beginning of a confession neither of them was ready to make. One night, they stayed up until 2 a.m. talking. Marcus was on a business trip. Rain tapped against the windows, the city lights flickered like distant stars. Ava sat cross-legged on the floor, a glass of wine in her hand. Ethan sat on the couch, leaning forward. "You ever feel like you're living someone else's life?" she asked. "All the time," he said. She laughed softly. "Everyone thinks Marcus and I are perfect. Power couple, beautiful house, good careers. But sometimes I feel invisible." He watched her fingers trace the rim of the glass. "You're not invisible," he said quietly. She looked up at him. Their eyes held for a moment too long. That night, the next day, Marcus hugged Ethan before leaving for work. "Thanks for keeping her company," he said casually. "She gets lonely when I travel." Ethan forced a smile. If only Marcus knew how close they were becoming. Over the next weeks, their connection deepened in subtle ways. They shared playlists, they cooked together, they talked about childhood memories, fears, regrets. Ava started waiting for Ethan to finish work so they could take evening walks. Ethan started noticing when she laughed, when she sighed, when her mood shifted. And somewhere along the line, friendship quietly crossed into something neither of them could name. One night, they sat on the balcony again. Ava leaned on the railing, city lights glowing in her eyes. "You're different from Marcus," she said. "How?" "You're present. When I talk, you don't check your phone, you don't interrupt, you don't try to fix everything. You just stay." He swallowed. She turned toward him, close enough that he could smell her perfume, something soft and warm like vanilla and rain. "Sometimes," she whispered, "I wish I met you first." The words hung in the air like lightning waiting to strike. Ethan felt his heart slam against his ribs. "Ava!" She looked away, embarrassed. "I shouldn't have said that." But she had, and neither of them could forget it. That night, Ethan couldn't sleep. He stared at the ceiling, replaying her voice, her eyes, the space between them. He knew he was crossing a line emotionally. He knew Marcus trusted him, but for the first time in years, he felt deeply connected to someone, and that connection was becoming impossible to ignore. In another room, Ava lay awake too. Her phone buzzed, a message from Ethan. "I'm glad I met you." She stared at the screen for a long time before replying. "Me too." And just like that, something shifted forever. Lines that should not be crossed. The messages started small, harmless. At least, that's what they told themselves. Ethan, "Did you sleep?" Ava, "Barely. My mind wouldn't shut up." Ethan, "Same." Ava, "Thinking about?" Ethan, "You already know." She stared at her phone, her thumb hovering over the screen. Then she typed, "Ava, we should stop this." 3 dots appeared, disappeared, appeared again. Ethan, "I know." Ethan, "But I don't want to." She set the phone down, heart pounding. The pull. Marcus returned from his trip a week later. He hugged Ava, kissed her cheek, talked about meetings and flights and deadlines. He barely noticed the change in her voice, the way her eyes searched the room for someone else. Ethan, on the other hand, noticed everything. The way her hand lingered when she passed him a plate, the way she laughed louder at his jokes than Marcus's, the way her gaze softened when she thought no one was watching. And Marcus remained oblivious. One evening, Marcus stayed late at work again. Ava and Ethan cooked dinner together. Music played softly from a speaker. The kitchen smelled of garlic and butter, and something dangerously intimate. She reached for a spice jar on the top shelf. "Here, I'll get it," Ethan said, stepping behind her. Their bodies were too close. His chest brushed her back. His hand reached past her shoulder. His breath touched her neck. She froze. For a moment, neither of them moved. Her pulse raced. He slowly pulled back, as if waking from a trance. "Sorry," he murmured. "It's fine," she said quickly. But it wasn't. The confession. That night, they sat on the couch again. Rain streaked the windows like blurred tears. "I feel like I'm betraying him just by talking to you," Ava whispered. Ethan stared at the floor. "Then we should stop." She looked at him sharply. "Do you want to?" He hesitated. "That's what I thought," she said bitterly. She hugged her knees, eyes glossy. "I don't know what's wrong with me. I love Marcus. I should. He's kind, he's successful. He gave me everything." "Except what you needed," Ethan said quietly. Her lips trembled. "And you think you can give me that?" "I don't know," he admitted, "but I know how I feel when I'm with you." She looked at him. "So do I," she whispered. The near kiss. The power went out suddenly. The room plunged into darkness. For a few seconds, they sat in silence. Then Ava's phone flashlight turned on, casting soft light across her face. Shadows danced on the walls. "You ever feel like fate is pushing you towards something you're afraid to touch?" she asked. He swallowed. "Yes." She stood up slowly and walked toward him. He didn't move. She stopped inches away. The air between them felt charged, electric, dangerous. "You're my husband's best friend," she whispered. "And I'm your best friend's wife," he replied. Her hand lifted, hovered near his face, then stopped. Their lips were so close he could feel her breath. Time stretched. The world narrowed. And then she stepped back. "I can't," she whispered, turning away. "Not like this." He nodded, his chest tight. "You're right." But the almost kiss burned in both their minds like a scar. Guilt and obsession. After that night, everything changed. They avoided being alone. They stopped texting as much. They tried to act normal, but pretending only made it worse. Ethan found himself replaying her voice, her scent, the warmth of her presence. Ava found herself comparing Marcus's touch to Ethan's absence. She started dreaming about him. She hated herself for it. One afternoon, Marcus noticed her distant gaze. "You okay?" he asked. "Just tired," she lied. He kissed her forehead and left. She watched him go, guilt twisting in her chest. Then her phone buzzed. "Ethan, can we talk?" Her heart dropped. The breaking point. They met at a quiet cafe the next day. Public, safe, but their eyes said everything words couldn't. "I can't keep doing this," Ava said, gripping her cup. "Me neither," Ethan said. "So we stop," she said firmly. He nodded. A long silence, then he said softly, "But if things were different, if Marcus wasn't in the picture, would you choose me?" She looked at him, and the answer terrified her. Yes. She walked out before she could change her mind. He stayed behind, staring at the empty chair. They had crossed the most dangerous line of all. They had admitted the truth. The suspicion. Marcus had always trusted Ethan. They'd built a company together from nothing. Shared apartments, failures, wins, heartbreaks. Ethan was the brother he chose, not the one he was born with. So when he noticed changes, he dismissed them at first. Ava was quieter. Ethan was more distant. Conversations stopped when he entered the room. Coincidences, he told himself, until they weren't. Subtle cracks. One evening, Marcus came home earlier than expected. The house was unusually quiet. He walked into the living room and saw Ava sitting on the couch, her phone pressed to her chest, eyes wide like she'd just been caught doing something wrong. "Hey," he said. "Who are you texting?" She jumped slightly. "Just Maya. She's asking about the design project." Marcus nodded, but something in her tone felt off. He went upstairs, but the feeling followed him like a shadow. The next day, during lunch at the office, Marcus noticed Ethan wasn't fully present. "You good?" Marcus asked. "Yeah, just tired," Ethan replied. "You've been tired a lot lately." Marcus studied him for a moment, then dropped it. But a seed had been planted. The accident. The slip happened a week later. Ava left her phone on the kitchen counter while taking a shower. Marcus was passing by when the screen lit up. "Ethan, I keep thinking about you." Marcus froze. He stared at the message like it wasn't real. He picked up the phone. He shouldn't have. He knew that. But he did. The chat thread opened. Not explicit, not physical, but intimate. Late-night conversations, emotional confessions, compliments that went beyond friendship. His chest tightened. This wasn't an affair, but it was close enough to hurt just as deeply. The quiet storm. That night, Marcus acted normal. He cooked dinner, asked Ava about her day, talked about a new client. She smiled. She lied. She laughed. He watched her like he was seeing her for the first time. After dinner, she went to bed early. Marcus sat in the dark living room, the glow of his laptop lighting his face. He didn't confront her. Not yet. He needed to understand. The confrontation with Ethan. The next morning, Marcus called Ethan to his office. "Close the door," he said. Ethan did. Marcus leaned back in his chair. "How close are you and Ava?" Ethan's heart stopped. "What do you mean?" "I mean exactly what I asked." Ethan hesitated. Marcus's eyes narrowed. "I saw the messages." Silence filled the room. "They didn't mean anything," Ethan said quickly. Marcus laughed, but there was no humor in it. "They meant something to you, to her." Ethan rubbed his face. "We didn't do anything." "But you wanted to," Marcus said quietly. Ethan didn't answer. That was enough. "I trusted you," Marcus said, voice low. "You slept on my couch. You built this company with me. You were at my wedding." Ethan swallowed. "I never meant to hurt you." "But you did." Marcus stood up, walking to the window. "You know what hurts the most? It's not that you liked her. It's that she liked you back." Ethan looked down. "I don't know what I'm going to do," Marcus continued, "but this changes everything." Ava faced the truth. That evening, Marcus confronted Ava. He sat on the edge of the bed while she stood by the dresser. "I saw your messages with Ethan," he said calmly. Her face drained of color. "Marcus, Don't lie," he said softly. "Just tell me the truth." She took a deep breath. "I felt lonely. He listened. He was there when you weren't." Marcus nodded, slowly, like he'd expected it.
"Did you sleep with him?" "No, never." He studied her eyes, searching for deception. She wasn't lying. "That's almost worse," he said quietly. She looked at him, confused. "Because you fell for him while still loving me." Tears filled her eyes. "I don't know what I feel." Marcus stood up. "I need time," he said, "and so do you." He walked out of the room, leaving her alone with the truth. A dangerous silence. The house became quiet. Too quiet. Ethan stopped coming over. Marcus stayed late at work. Ava stayed in her room. 3 people connected with love, guilt, and betrayal, none of them knowing what the right choice was anymore. The message that changed everything. 2 weeks later, Ava received a message from Ethan. "I can't stop thinking about you. Even after everything, I just needed you to know." She stared at the screen. Then she typed something she had never planned to say. "Come over. Marcus is out of town." Her heart pounded as she sent it. She knew this was the moment everything would break. The night everything shattered. Ava stared at the message she had sent. "Come over. Marcus is out of town." Her hands trembled. She had crossed a line she could never uncross. The drive. Ethan sat in his car outside her house for a long time. He knew this was wrong. He knew Marcus would never forgive him. He knew this could destroy everything. Yet his hand was already on the steering wheel. He turned off the engine and stared at the front door. "Just leave," his conscience whispered, but his heart had already chosen. He walked up the steps and knocked. The door. Ava opened it almost immediately, as if she had been waiting behind it. Her hair was loose. She wore a simple sweater, sleeves pulled over her hands. Her eyes were red, but determined. "You came," she said softly. "You told me to," he replied. They stood there for a moment, neither moving, as if the door itself was a boundary they were afraid to cross. Then she stepped aside. "Come in." The door closed behind him. Silence before the storm. The house felt different without Marcus. Quieter, lighter, dangerously intimate. They sat on opposite ends of the couch. "You shouldn't be here," Ava whispered. "I know." "Then why did you come?" He looked at her. "Because I asked." She laughed weakly. "That's not the real reason." He hesitated, then said quietly, "Because I love you." The words hung in the air like a grenade. Her breath caught. You can't say that." "But I do." She covered her mouth, tears filling her eyes. "I don't know what to do with that." "Then don't do anything," he said softly. "Just don't push me away." The moment. She stood up and walked to the window. "I used to think love was safe, predictable, something you build and maintain." She turned to him. "But this feels like fire, like something that burns everything." He stood up too, slowly approaching her. "Fire can also keep you warm," he said. She laughed through tears. "Or burn your house down." They stood inches apart. Her hand brushed his arm. He didn't pull away. He lifted his hand, hesitated, then gently touched her cheek. She inhaled sharply. This time she didn't stop him. Their lips met. Soft at first, tentative, then desperate. Years of loneliness, regret, longing, and restraint poured into that single kiss. She clutched his shirt. He held her as if he might lose her forever. They broke apart, breathless. "We can't," she whispered. "But we already did," he said. The aftermath. They sat on the floor, backs against the couch. No sex, no clothes removed, just a kiss. But it felt heavier than anything physical. Ava stared at her hands. "I betrayed him." "You didn't sleep with me," Ethan said, though his voice was hollow. "But I wanted to." He didn't answer. The knock. The knock came at 10:47 p.m. 3 sharp knocks. Ava froze. Ethan's heart stopped. Marcus was not supposed to be home until Sunday. She looked at her, terror in her eyes. "Hide," she whispered. He stood up, unsure what to do. The knocking came again. "Ava?" Marcus's voice called. Her world collapsed. The return. She opened the door slowly. Marcus stood there, suitcase in hand, jacket over his arm. "I missed my flight," he said casually. "Figured I'd surprise you." Then he looked past her, at Ethan, standing in the living room. The silence was deafening. The truth in his eyes. Marcus didn't shout. He didn't punch Ethan. He didn't cry. He just stared. "So," he said quietly, setting his suitcase down, "this is what loneliness looks like." Ava felt like the floor had vanished beneath her.
The confrontation. The air in the room felt thick, suffocating. Marcus stood in the doorway, his expression calm, but his eyes told a different story. They were dark, wounded, calculating. Ethan felt like a criminal caught at the scene of a crime. Ava felt like her heart had split in two. The silence that hurt more than anger. Marcus walked inside slowly and placed his suitcase by the wall. He took off his jacket, folded it neatly, and placed it on a chair as if this were just another ordinary evening. But nothing was ordinary. He looked at Ethan. "Why are you here?" he asked quietly. Ethan opened his mouth, but no words came out. Ava stepped forward. "Marcus, He raised a hand, stopping her. "I asked him." Ethan swallowed. "She invited me." Marcus nodded, as if confirming something he already knew. "And why did you come?" Ethan hesitated. Then he said the truth. "Because I love her." The words landed like a gunshot. Ava's eyes widened. Marcus's jaw tightened. A husband's truth. Marcus looked at Ava. "Is that true?" he asked. She stared at the floor. "I don't know," she whispered, "but I feel something I never expected." Marcus exhaled slowly, like he was trying to keep himself from breaking. "I gave you everything," he said softly. "The house you wanted, the life you wanted, the stability you asked for." "I know," she said, tears streaming down her face, "but I needed you, not just the life." He nodded. "That's on me," I admitted. "I thought providing was the same as loving." He turned to Ethan. "But you," Marcus said, his voice colder now, "you knew exactly what you were doing." Ethan shook his head. "I tried to stop it." "But you didn't," Marcus replied. The choice. Marcus sat on the couch and looked at both of them. "Let's end the lies," he said. "Ava, if I wasn't your husband, who would you choose?" Her heart raced. She looked at Ethan, then at Marcus. She thought about the years with Marcus, the stability, the shared memories, the future they had planned. Then she thought about Ethan, the conversations, the laughter, the way he made her feel seen. Her voice trembled. "I don't know. That's the problem." Marcus laughed quietly. "That's your answer." Ethan's breaking point. Ethan stepped forward. "This is my fault. If anyone should leave, it's me." Marcus looked at him. "Leave," he said simply. Ava turned sharply. "Marcus, wait!" He shook his head. "I can't look at him right now." Ethan looked at Ava. She looked back, eyes filled with tears. He wanted her to stop him. She didn't. He walked out of the house. The collapse. Ava collapsed onto the couch, sobbing. Marcus sat beside her, not touching her. "Do you love me?" he asked quietly. She cried harder. "Yes," she whispered, "but I don't know what love is supposed to feel like anymore." Marcus stared ahead. Love is not always loud. Sometimes it's just staying when it's hard. She looked at him, guilt crushing her chest. "I don't know if I can stay." He closed his eyes. "That hurts more than you sleeping with him ever could." Aftermath. Ethan didn't go home that night.
He drove aimlessly through the city, replaying everything. Marcus sat awake until morning, staring at the wall. Ava lay in bed, her mind fractured between two men and two lives. The message that changed everything. The next morning, Ava received a message from Ethan. "If you ever choose me, I'll be waiting, but I won't be the other man." She stared at the message. Marcus sat across the room, watching her silently. She knew the next decision would define her life.
The ultimatum. The house felt colder the next morning. Sunlight poured through the windows, but nothing felt warm. Ava sat at the dining table, her phone in her hand. Ethan's message stared back at her like a ticking clock. "If you ever choose me, I'll be waiting, but I won't be the other man." Across the room, Marcus watched her quietly, a cup of untouched coffee in his hand. He hadn't slept. Neither had she. The conversation that had to happen. Marcus finally broke the silence. "We can't keep pretending last night didn't happen." Ava nodded slowly. "I don't want to fight," he continued. "I want honesty, for once." She looked at him. "What do you want me to say?" He set the cup down. "I want you to tell me if you still want this marriage." The words felt heavier than any argument. She swallowed. "I care about you. You're my husband, my family, my past." "And Ethan?" asked Marcus. Her lips trembled. "He's something I didn't expect, something I never planned." Marcus leaned back, eyes tired. "That's not an answer, Ava." He stood up and walked to the window. "I won't live in a marriage where I'm an option," he said quietly. "So here's the truth, as painful as it is." He turned to her. "Choose." Her heart dropped. "Choose what? Me or him?" She stared at him, stunned. "You're asking me to decide like that?" "Yes," he said firmly, "because I already know what happens if you don't." She felt tears well up. "This is unfair." "So is emotional betrayal," he replied, not unkindly. Across town, Ethan sat in his apartment, staring at his phone. He hadn't slept either. He replayed the night over and over. Marcus's eyes, Ava's tears, the way everything collapsed. He opened his messages and typed, "I'm leaving the city for a while. If you choose him, I'll understand. If you choose me, I'll come back." He stared at the message, then sent it. Then he packed a bag. Back at the house, Ava sat on the edge of the bed, overwhelmed. Marcus sat beside her, his voice quieter now. "There's something else you should know," he said. She looked at him, confused. "What?" He hesitated, then spoke. "I knew you were lonely long before Ethan showed up." Her eyes widened. "What?" "I tried to tell myself you were happy, that you didn't need me the way I needed you, but I was wrong." He took a deep breath. "I almost had an affair last year." Her breath caught. "But I didn't," he continued, "because I realized I didn't want another woman. I wanted you. I wanted us." She stared at him, shocked. "I changed after that," he said. "I tried to be better, but I guess I was too late." Her chest tightened. The decision. Hours passed. Ava sat alone in the living room, memories flooding her mind. Her wedding day, late-night laughs with Marcus, quiet walks with Ethan, the kiss, the confrontation. Her phone buzzed. A message from Ethan. "I'm at the airport." Her heart raced. Marcus stood in the doorway, watching her. "You don't have to tell me now, but you have to tell me today." She looked at her phone, then at Marcus, then back at her phone. Her thumb hovered over the screen, and finally she typed, "Wait." The chase. Ava didn't even grab her keys. She just ran. The drive.
Her hands trembled as she drove through traffic, heart pounding against her ribs like it was trying to escape. What am I doing? Who am I choosing? Ethan's message replayed in her mind. I'm at the airport. She imagined him walking away, a life without him, a life with Marcus, but forever haunted by what could have been. Tears blurred her vision. She pressed harder on the accelerator. The airport. The airport was loud, chaotic, full of people going somewhere. She scanned the terminal, searching for him. Then she saw him. Ethan stood near the gate, backpack over his shoulder, staring at his phone like he was waiting for a sign. Her heart nearly burst. "Ethan!" she shouted. He turned. Their eyes met. The confession. He walked toward her slowly, disbelief in his eyes. "You came," he said quietly. She nodded, breathless. "I couldn't let you leave." He studied her face. "Why?" She hesitated. Then she said the words that would change everything. "Because I love you." Time seemed to stop. Ethan exhaled shakily. "You're married." "I know," she whispered, "but I've never felt this alive, never felt this understood. I can't pretend anymore." He looked away, conflicted. "What about Marcus?" Her voice cracked. "He deserves someone who chooses him without doubt. Right now, that's not me." Ethan's eyes softened. "This will destroy him." "I know." "And you're okay with that?" She shook her head, tears falling. "No, but I'm not okay with losing you either." The choice. He took her hands. "You're not choosing me," he said gently. "You're choosing a life that will never be the same." She nodded. "I'm ready." He searched her eyes for doubt. He didn't find it. The call. Her phone buzzed. Marcus. She froze. Ethan looked at her. "Answer it." She swallowed and pressed accept. "Where are you?" Marcus asked. "Airport," she whispered. Silence. Then a soft exhale. "So you chose him?" She closed her eyes. "Yes." Marcus's move. Hours earlier, Marcus had already sensed something. When Ava left the house without explanation, he knew. He didn't follow her. Instead, he did something no one expected. He called a lawyer. Back at the airport, Marcus arrived. Not angry, not desperate. Calm. He walked toward them, suitcase in hand, like a man walking into his own ending. Ava's heart dropped. "Marcus!" He stopped a few feet away. "So this is him," he said quietly. Ethan stepped forward. "Marcus, Marcus raised a hand. "You don't owe me an explanation. You already gave me the truth." He looked at Ava. "I loved you enough to let you go, but I won't beg you to stay." She cried, "I never meant to hurt you." "You did," he said simply. "But love is risk. I knew that when I married you." He handed her a folder. "What's this?" she asked. "Divorce papers," he replied. Her breath caught. "I signed them already." The shock. Ethan stared at him. "You're just letting her go?" Marcus nodded. "I deserve someone who chooses me without hesitation. And so do you." He turned to Ethan. "Take care of her. Don't make her regret this." Then he looked at Ava one last time. "I hope he gives you what I couldn't." And he walked away. The aftermath. Ava collapsed into Ethan's arms, sobbing. He held her tightly. But inside, his heart was heavy, because he knew something she didn't yet understand. Choosing love sometimes means losing everything else. The aftermath. Love felt different when it wasn't forbidden anymore. A new beginning. 3 months later, Ava stood in a small apartment overlooking the city. The space was modest. No marble counters, no panoramic balcony like Marcus's house, no luxury. But it was hers. And Ethan's. They had moved in together quietly. No big announcement, no dramatic social media posts. Just 2 people trying to build something from the ruins of something else. At first, it felt perfect. They cooked together, They slept tangled in each other's arms. They talked about dreams, travel, art, starting over. Ava felt alive again. Ethan felt chosen. But reality has a way of seeping through cracks. The weight of choice. One night, Ava sat on the couch scrolling through old photos. Her wedding day. Marcus smiling, nervous, hopeful. Her laughing, carefree, unaware of the future. She turned the phone off quickly, guilt burning her chest. "You miss him," Ethan said quietly from the kitchen. She froze. "No, I miss who I was." He sat beside her. "You don't regret choosing me?" She hesitated just a second too long. He noticed. "I regret hurting him," she said softly. He nodded, but something inside him tightened. Marcus's silence. Marcus had vanished from their lives. He sold the house. He stepped down as co-CEO of the company and left Ethan in charge. He moved to another city without telling anyone where he went. People said he was starting over. People said he was broken. Neither Ava nor Ethan knew which was true, but his absence was louder than any confrontation could have been. Aftermath. Cracks in the dream. At first, Ethan felt proud. He had chosen love over loyalty. He had risked everything and won. But slowly, doubt crept in. Ava still talked about Marcus sometimes. He used to cook breakfast every Sunday. He would have loved this place. He always believed in me. Ethan started to feel like a replacement, not a choice. The fight. One evening, they argued. It started small. "You never fully left him. That's not fair. I was his husband. And I was your escape." She stared at him. "You knew what you were getting into." "I thought you chose me." "I did. But do you choose me now? Every day?" She couldn't answer immediately. Silence filled the room. He walked out. Reality. Weeks passed. Love turned into routine. Routine turned into frustration. They loved each other, but love didn't erase guilt, memory, and consequence. Ava began dreaming of Marcus. Ethan began wondering if he was just a chapter in her healing, not her ending. The message. One night, Ava received a message from an unknown number. "I hope you're happy." She stared at the screen. It was Marcus. She typed back, "Are you okay?" He didn't reply. The question. That night, she sat on the balcony, staring at the city lights. Ethan joined her. "Do you ever think about what would have happened if you stayed?" he asked. She nodded. "And?" "I think I would have been safe, but I wouldn't have been honest." He looked at her. "And now?" She looked away. "Now I'm honest, but I'm not sure I'm at peace." The truth settles in. They sat there in silence. Love had brought them together, but love had also destroyed something beautiful. And now they had to live with both. The things love can't fix. Some love stories end with a wedding. Others end with a goodbye. This one ended with understanding. The unexpected meeting. 6 months after the divorce, Ava received an email. From Marcus. Subject: Coffee? Her hands shook as she read it. "I'll be in town for a conference. If you're open to it, I'd like to talk. No expectations." She stared at the screen for a long time before replying. "Okay." The cafe. Marcus looked different. Not broken, not angry, just older. He wore a simple jacket, no designer brands, no corporate polish. He looked lighter somehow, like someone who had dropped a heavy weight. They sat across from each other in silence. "You look well," she said. "So do you," he replied. The conversation they never had. "I'm not here to blame you," Marcus said quietly. "I did that already. It didn't help." She nodded, eyes wet. "I moved," he continued. "New city, new company, new life." "Are you happy?" she asked. He thought for a moment. "I'm peaceful. That's better than happy." She smiled sadly. "I'm still figuring that out." He looked at her carefully. "Do you love him?" Marcus asked. She hesitated, then nodded. "Yes, but love isn't the same as certainty." Marcus smiled faintly. "That's something I learned too late." The truth between them. "I blamed myself for a long time," he said. "I thought if I had been more present, you wouldn't have looked elsewhere." She shook her head. "This wasn't just about you. I didn't know who I was anymore. Ethan woke something up in me." "And did you find it?" he asked. She stared at her coffee. "I found myself, but I lost something too." He nodded. "That's usually how it works." Ethan's realization. That evening, Ava told Ethan about the meeting. He listened quietly. "You still love him," he said. She shook her head. "Not the way I love you, but you love what you had." She didn't deny it. He looked at her, tired but gentle. "I think we started as fire, and now we're just trying to be warm." She laughed softly. "Is that bad?" "No, it's real." The quiet choice. Weeks passed. They didn't break up. They didn't pretend everything was perfect. They stayed. Not because it was dramatic, not because it was forbidden, but because they chose each other, without fantasy. And that was harder than passion. Marcus's letter. One day, Ava received a letter in the mail. Marcus's handwriting. "I realized something. Loving you was never my mistake. Losing you was never my failure. We were two people growing in different directions. I hope you keep growing, and I hope someone chooses me the way you chose Ethan." She cried when she finished reading it. Not from regret, from closure. Final scene. Ava stood on the balcony with Ethan one night, city lights glowing beneath them. "Do you think we made the right choice?" she asked. He thought for a long time. "I think there are no right choices, only honest ones." She leaned her head on his shoulder. "And this?" she asked. "This is honest," he replied. Love is not always a fairy tale. Sometimes it's a storm that destroys one home to build another. Sometimes it's a lesson wrapped in heartbreak. And sometimes the greatest love story is not about who you end up with, but who you become after everything falls apart. They didn't live happily ever after. They lived honestly ever after. And in a world full of illusions, that was the bravest ending of all.